Well, hello, Bill.
Hey, Don.
How you doing?
I'm quite well, quite well. Quite busy, but quite well.
Well, it's been a while.
Right, it has been since we've had a chance to just chat out here on the porch.
We've had a couple weeks off due to the holidays and some other obstacles that got in the way, but we're back today. Buster's not with us today, but Bill and I are here, and we would like to welcome you all back to the Old Sawtee Show. We hope you all are having a great holiday season, and here we are somewhere between Christmas and New Year's in the North Georgia mountains. It's raining today, and it's a little chilly, but not terribly cold. But here we are, and we've got a special show today. We've got a special guest. We've got Dr. Scott Hancock with us today. He's now local to White County, and he's been here for a few years. I've known him for a few years. He has a very interesting background and interesting story of what he's done and does today. And we're just happy, Scott, to have you here, and appreciate you coming by.
It's nice to be here. It's an honor.
So you moved to, you told me earlier, you moved to White County or to Georgia.
I moved to Georgia in 1989, and I was in practice in Ohio in a rural Amish area. I grew up in Kentucky, wanted to go back to Lexington, and at that time the thoroughbred market was upside down, and so my life dream of being an equine veterinarian in Lexington was shattered. And so the jobs that were opening were in more rural parts of America. And so of all places, I ended up in Ohio in a area, very heavy Amish population, lots of buggy horses, work horses, just all kinds of horses, and really an interesting group of people. And what I thought was going to be a major disappointment ended up being a game changer in my life. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, meeting them, working with them. And I was there for 3 years and learned a lot from the people, learned a lot about vet practice, and then moved to Georgia because we learned that Georgia thoroughbred racing was coming to Georgia and that there was no private equine horse hospital in the state of Georgia. The university had a fantastic hospital, but there was not a private practice in the state of Georgia. So I moved here with a goal of setting up a private surgical hospital. I'm a general practitioner, I'm not a surgeon, but I put together a really good team of people, and the hospital did pretty well, but racing never came. But fortunately, there were a lot of training horses, etc. here. And I took a call one evening in the fall in Sawtee, Georgia. I had to look on a map to find out where it was. It was a horse with a colic. I don't remember the details, but I turned on 75 by the Indian Mound, and I guess it was just the perfect moment. It was so breathtaking that it was like a light shined, and I thought that's a fascinating area. And so I kind of had a goal to eventually try to live up in this area at some time point, and was able to do that several years later. So I've been in Georgia since '89. I've been in White County since I think 97, 98, and have enjoyed it very much.
So mostly horses has been your practice.
Horses, and I always liked cattle as well. Pretty much large animal, but most of our focus with our practice in our hospital was horses. We had people that had cutting horses, western horses that might have had cattle, or roping horses, and so we did cattle for them, but not of any volume. I enjoyed cattle because we had them at home, and I just always enjoyed people that own cattle. Sometimes they're a little easier to deal with than some of the horse clientele that have a fortune tied up in horses.
You sparked something in my mind when you were talking about the Amish in Ohio. When Don and I were in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, we toured the area, and they had camels. Now, do you work? Work on camels?
No, sir.
I was in shock they had camels up there.
Yeah, that's mainly for a tourist thing. They'll breed them. I've seen that in Ohio too, but it's not really part of their culture. It's just unique. They can breed them. There's a little bit of a market. I quickly learned, the limited experience I had with camels, is you've got to know about their temperament and their attitude. The drugs are a little different. Even the hitting the jugular vein in the camel is different from a horse. And I have a great gift of knowing how much I don't know, and it didn't take me long to figure out I wasn't going to be a camel.
I've spent a fair amount of time in different parts of the Middle East, and of course camels are part of the
Yes,
culture there, even though many of them were imported to go there. But anyway, we were looking in the barns to see if they had a camel sticking out of their head.
Yeah, I have a funny story. I was years ago. We used to do embryo transfers, and so I would put Egyptian embryos, which typically is kind of a small breed of an Egyptian Arab horse, and they were quite valuable in the time. I would put those embryos into draft horse mares, and these mares would weigh 2,000 pounds, and the mare controls the size of the fetus. So these mares had enormous birth weight foals, and so at weaning age, they were pretty big. Well, it just kind of hit, and next thing I know, I had offers to cross the pond, and I actually went and worked for the Crown Prince of Qatar. And flew into Doha, Qatar, and was at his place, and to entertain me a little, he took me to camel races, and we sat in a tent on these folded rugs, and I don't know what they were eating with their hands, but I tried to join in. But he was speaking in Arabic to these people, and they were interested in me. I was an outsider, and they told him that I was a renowned camel doctor from the U.S. and that I knew the right medications to make horses or camels win races. Well, they brought me teas, and they were just bending over. And he chuckled later, because I said, "Why were they so nice to me? I have no experience with it." And he said he kind of countered that story. So yeah, I realized that I had nothing to offer at that table.
But you kept your mouth shut and enjoyed it.
I did. I enjoyed it. It was a unique experience. Saw some good horses and an interesting culture.
Sure.
But I was awful glad to get back to Georgia too. Yeah.
I don't think we have many camels in Georgia.
No.
So, you've gone from going out to a farm and taking care of an animal there, a cow or a horse, and then you've built the hospital and sort of pioneered that in the equine industry, but you do much different things today. Tell us about your current involvement.
Well, today I work as a professional service veterinarian with a great company called Boehringer Ingelheim. And it's actually the Boehringer family. They're a fifth-generation German family from Ingelheim, Germany. And they are the largest, I think, privately owned pharmaceutical company in the world. Privately owned, I stress. And they have a division in veterinary medicine. And I was fortunate to get a job with them. And so my role is I go into clinics and I work with young grads, veterinarians, and we do horse owner talks and meetings, and it's really a good time. It's kind of a culmination of a career. I think the veterinarians feel you've kind of walked in their moccasins. They're comfortable. I share things that went well for me, and unfortunately I must share the things that didn't go as well, bad diagnosis, bad responses, and I think that makes you credible, and people relax around you and they realize you have notches in your belt, and you try to share and encourage them. So it's a great job. I get to go to racetracks, a lot of nice clinics. I see a lot of good horse flesh, and it's a fantastic way to, in my golden years, to still be an equine veterinarian, although I'm not really active in practicing. And but it's been a good gig. I enjoy it.
Well, you live just down the road from us, and you got a farm on the river there. Tell us about your farm. It's awesome.
Well, I was in Saltee one day. I lived in a cabin across from Sky Lake, and I drive a horse and buggy around. It's peculiar, perhaps, but I enjoy it. And I was driving a buggy through Saltee, and old Doc Lumsden, who is a kind of a renowned doctor in this area, was walking, and he stuck his thumb out I didn't know who he was, and I pulled over and picked him up, and we had quite a chat. And this gentleman had delivered 4,000 babies in this community, and it was really an icon, a fascinating man. I could sit by the fire, and we had many, many, many fireside chats, and I would share stories about my practice, and he would share stories about getting in a canoe that maybe trying to cross a river and trying to take appendix out of someone on the couch with ether in the early years, the things he had to do, the survival things he did. He's a fascinating man. And so I'd shared with him that I'd like to have a property on the river, and that I'd like to farm it with horses and kind of return to the way my grandfather had farmed. And so we drove down the road, and he showed me 16, almost 17 acres he owned. We kicked around in the soil a little bit. I took him back home, and he said he'd call me, and he called me in a few days and gave me a price, and my wife and I bought it. So we wanted to honor him. We told him we'd have a barn raising, and we'd have some primitive buildings, log cabin buildings on it, and we'd try to have it a place where people could visit and learn a little bit about farming the way they did 100 years ago. And I think he was pleased. He came a lot. We had a lot of events, but my wife and I live in a home on the river that was built in 1798 in Bardstown, Kentucky. And my sons and I tore that down and hauled it back here and had people resurrect it for us. And then our guest cabin on the farm was built in 1844. And then in my years in Ohio, there were one particular Amish family I was really close to. I would go there in the middle of the night to deliver a foal or treat a colic or whatever it was, and then we'd go sit by the wood stove and always have the best cookies in the world and coffee. And the guy was such a good horseman, and we became really close friends. And he called one Saturday afternoon, kind of excited, and told me I need to come right away. And I said, what's the problem? He said, well, there's not a problem. I just need to see a good piece of horse flesh. And I said, well, Levi, I've seen a few good horses, and I'm excited. And if you said he's good, I know he is, but I'll swing by there Monday or Tuesday when I'm in that part of the county. Oh, no, Doc. This horse, I tell you, I drove him to church, and he's just too fast to go to church in. And I could hear the excitement in his voice, and so I drove out there, and here's this big, raw-boned, handsome horse. Still had ice shoes on for being in Ohio in the ice in winters, and we looked him over, and the story goes on. But this horse ended up, he was freaky fast. We had to qualify him. We sent him to the Meadowlands in New Jersey, and he set a world record. And I think he was $20,000 shy of earning $1 million, which for a buggy horse that was 7 years old, it was a Walt Disney story. And honestly, I'm not sure how much I had to do with that. We kept him tuned up and worked on him and tried to keep him in good health. But this horse had the heart, and he was amazing. And so later they said, we owe you something. What would it be? And so I said, well, I've always treasured those timber frame barns. And he said, well, we were kind of thinking that way. When the snow flies, we'll send the grandkids to the woods to get big timber, and we'll carve you out one. And they did. So we had a barn raising on January 20th, 2007. And we literally started the barn at daylight, and by dark it was done. Wow. It was under roof, and we had 600 people that we kept counts on show up, as well as 5 or 6 Amish and their wife and children, and it was like a magical day. It just happened, and it's a solid barn, and they've since called. We've bought some property a mile from here, and our home farm is for sale, and we're going to move, and so they're coming the second Saturday in February to do a barn raising at that time. So hopefully it'll be a repeat. But it was a cultural event. We had old elderly people in chairs with their canes, and they were just watch. We had people in tears. It was just amazing. There were 232 white oak pegs that held the timber frame part of the barn together, and it was kind of artwork to see. And these people have a strong German heritage. They've done many of these, and it was just fun watching them work, and everybody in the community rolled their sleeves up, and it was a fantastic day, and we're hoping we'll create that again February 8th coming up, so we'll see.
We're going to try to be there. We're going to try to
That'd be
capture
great.
some of that day on film and share that with others that are watching.
Yeah, that would it would be a treat. I really look forward to it.
Because you also were telling me earlier, I know you live on the Chattahoochee River, and your log cabin is there, and your farm. You were talking about the fish there, and some of the ones that you've seen that are pretty good sized fish.
Yeah,
So-
it's funny. There's when the Amish came from the barn raising, of course they had spinning reels. They didn't have fly rods, but on Sunday we built the barn on Saturday. Sunday was the Sabbath, and they rested, and they fished a little bit, and they caught some nice trout. And since up and down the Chattahoochee, there's some really nice trout that are in there. We've had some friends and family fish behind our house and catch some trophies, really nice trout. I can't seem to catch a cold in that river. But my wife reminds me that I gotta be still for 45 minutes or longer, and I've just never been capable of that. So, but yeah, it's fun. And when the boys would come, if we could catch some trout and smoke them, and everything we eat on our farm, we raise. We raise sheep. We have our own lamb. We have dressed our own chickens. We have our own eggs, and we have a greenhouse and a garden. And it's kind of nice when everything on our table that night is from the farm. It's a lot of work, but to me, the joy is the climax of it is seeing it spread out on the table and having friends and family there. It makes it worthwhile.
You mentioned earlier about buggies and driving them around Sawtee. I would tell everyone listening that if you see a horse and buggy in White County, Georgia, it's about a 95% chance that Dr. Hancock is the one driving it.
Yeah, it's funny. The Lynch Mountain, the road behind us, I often take friends and give tours on that road, and the people on that road appealed to the DOT to have horse and buggy signs, which was a great surprise to me. I'll always go out of my way. If I see a car coming either behind me or coming towards me, I always try to pull out of the way respectfully. And I think it kind of makes a quaint atmosphere. Everyone stops and waves and says how much they enjoy seeing it. But one day I took a group, and I'm going down Lynch Mountain, and I think there's 5 signs. There's state horse and buggy signs like you'd see in Pennsylvania. And I tell them that's probably the most successful thing I've ever done in my career. The highest achievement is, and I'm told it's the only road in the state of Georgia that has horse and buggy signs on it. So yeah, it's just a great community to do what you want to do and be who you want to be. And I've met some interesting people going down the road in a horse and buggy, and if I have room in the back seat and they look like they need a ride, I'll give them a ride. And usually by the end of the ride, we're laughing, and everyone has a story, so it makes life rich in my view.
I had a Amish buggy and a standard-bred mare to pull it at one time, and I just got it, and I had horses all my life, but I didn't know anything about pulling something. And so I was so proud of this, and we got it all hooked up. And I told my wife, Rosemarie, I said, you need to get some fried chicken and a potato salad and iced tea and put it in the back of this thing. And we got in this thing, and we go to town, which was about 2 or 3 miles from our home. And my grandmother was still alive at the time, and we were going by her house or close to it. And I decided, we ought to stop by because she'd really get a kick out of this. I did not know that they had just sealed her driveway the asphalt driveway that morning.
It's like glass.
And it was
yeah.
steep, and it was like glass. And so this mare gets us about halfway up the drive, and all 4 feet just slip out from under her.
Yeah.
And she rolls over, the buggy rolls over. I'm seeing fried chicken and stuff flying around. And we had to climb out the top and get outside. Got the horse unhooked and got her up, and then got everything untangled, and then had some help come by, and we got the buggy turned up. And about that time I looked, and my wife was walking, and she was almost out of earshot, but she was walking away. And I said, "Where are you going?" And she said, "My buggy days are over."
Yeah, that would leave an imprint.
So
yeah.
she hitchhiked home, and we got the horse and the buggy home, and we didn't keep it very long after that. It was good while it lasted.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that to you, someone who knows what they're doing.
Oh, well, I enjoy it, and people say that somebody's going to hit you or whatever, and I have lights and a strobe light on a buggy, and I can't think of a better way to go if I have to go. I enjoy it, and I'll just keep driving till I get to go to the final address. So, yeah.
Well, we will certainly look forward to the barn raising. That is
Thank
going
you.
to be really awesome, and we invite you to come back anytime that you can. Be with us. I
Okay.
know you come by from time to time. Come back and be with us. Share with us what's going on, and
Sure.
keep us updated. And
Okay.
we just appreciate so much you coming by today.
Well, thank you.
Bill,
for
you
allowing me.
didn't get out here today.
We were really, really busy. As a matter of fact, when I came over to do the podcast, I was put my jacket on, and people started asking for cider samples. I didn't ask them; they were asking me, "Well, can I have this? Can I have this?" So I didn't mean to hold you guys up, but I wanted to be a gracious host over there as best I could. But we've been really busy. I mean, of course, this is that time of year. A lot of educators, teachers are away, out of school, so they're here with their families, staying in the area, and tremendous number of people from Florida.
Yes.
And they love coming up in the cold and rainy day, and they're used to living in the warmth and the sunshine in there. But they just love hanging around up here, and some of them are staying in the store for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And but we've shared a lot of cider with folks, a lot of cheese, and it's been a lot of fun stories with our folks today and yesterday as well. And it's really been a big week all the way around.
It has been a busy week, and because of the weather, we didn't have a big group for music today. We had a good group, but not a real big group.
We had several guests though.
We did have some guests come by and
I
play.
always invite customers. We always have an extra guitar, and if a customer comes by that can play or sing or something like that, we invite them to be a
That's
part of that.
nice,
So
yeah.
it's kind of cool. So we had that one fellow was virtually a professional guitarist from Nashville, a studio
Wow.
player, and that young fellow that came over, and then so I always keep an extra guitar over by the door.
Yeah.
And so customers will come in and pick a little bit there. They did that a lot yesterday, but today we invite them to come. And of course, our group is welcoming because all ground's level here at the,
Yeah.
you notice this floor is level here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have people from all abilities. I'm the least of the bunch by far, but they some of them really play well. But it's always a joy. It's a joy.
Yeah.
The whole place is a fun place. We hope folks have a wonderful new year as we look forward to
Absolutely.
the days ahead.
To both of you and to our audience, we hope you all have a great New Year's, and I hope that 2025 brings peace and prosperity to
Absolutely.
everyone. And thanks again. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. It
We
was a
appreciate
joy
you
being
all
here.
joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Old Saltee Show.